Hi, this is Danny again, the producer of the LoudMouth MMA podcast. Today's episode was recorded by Keith, who normally does the news episodes with Kyle and David Chicken Parm Stewart, who's featured on last week's news episode. They did a fantastic job. You can find them at themmatakeover.com. Please check back every week for news episodes with Keith. Thanks, and I hope you enjoy the episode.
You got a gun, got a big gun, you got a gun. It's not a
Hey guys, how's everyone doing? I know the first thing you guys are thinking of, you're like, hey man, that's not Kyle's voice. And you are absolutely correct, that is not Kyle's voice. It's actually Keith's voice. You should know me. I'm on the air every single week. I'm on the Takeover.com. I do the news and notes with Kyle every single week, but unfortunately Kyle can't be here this week. He had a family situation he had to take care of, so he let us take over. I tried telling you that we're part of the MMA Takeover. I guess Kyle's finding out that the whole plan all along was to take over his podcast. So his step one, this is like when the NWO took over WCW. Anyways, my guest is a former guest of the show. He was on last week. Dave Chicken Parm Stewart. Dave, how you doing, man?
I'm doing well, and it's about time that we finally started to take over this industry, the MMA industry.
Yeah, like Kyle thought he was lending to us, and he just realized that we're just going to take over. We're going to steal his logo, steal his sponsors, steal his fans, steal everything.
Steal everything, Keith. That's what we do at themmatakeover.com.
So, real quick, I appreciate you filling in for me last week. For those who don't know, Kyle said I had a family situation to take care of. I'll be transparent. My wife's grandmother passed away, so I had to go up to Canada, where my wife is from. Went up to New Brunswick, Canada for the week to celebrate her grandmother's life and obviously the funeral and lake and everything. So appreciate you helping me out in a tough situation. You did a better job than I always do, so that was nice to listen to. So I appreciate that.
Yep, no problem. It was my pleasure to pump the website and just have a good time talking with Kyle.
So real quick, to anybody's listening, just bear with us. I usually don't host. I usually do the secondary part, and Kyle kind of does the host. So if it's a little hectic, bear with me, please. And also, we're doing the show a little different. We're doing it different than we normally tape our shows. Kyle kind of does the production part. We're doing the production part, but I'm trying to do it the way Kyle does it, similar, which we're not used to. So this is really the first time we're doing it. So hopefully people are still hearing this. Hopefully this is still recording and everyone here. If not, sorry, Kyle. Anyway, so let's get into our MMA. Big thing I think we'd all say was UFC 209. Give me your general thoughts of UFC 209.
Well, unfortunately, me and you, we didn't get to watch it together because of unfortunate circumstances. But I went to Buffalo Wild Wings, and the undercard, I didn't get to see the fight pass, but the 4 fights on the Fox Sports one I thought were amazing. It was like a roller coaster where you just kept going up and up and up. And me and my friend Sal were talking. It's like, it's only going to get better from here because these fights were amazing. The Godbear fight, the Craig fight, Darren Elkins fight. But then once you hit the Enrique and the Darren, it kind of slowed down a little bit, but we thought the pressure was going to be mind-blowing once we got to the main card. But it started pretty good. But once you hit the Rashad Evans versus Daniel Kelly, that's when it all started to get downhill, where I thought the judges scored that one wrong. And the Venata fight, I didn't think went 30-27. I gave him the first round, but the judges gave it unanimous for David Hamer. And then the worst, what people are calling the worst title fight in history, Woodley Thompson 2, just really sucked the air out of the whole room, and it was unbearable to watch, where you basically waited for Tyron Woodley to do one move twice where he knocked down Thompson to win the belt. That's basically my synopsis of the card. I enjoyed the prelims, loved it. Was on the edge of my seat. Then once we got to the main card, I was kind of just – the Hunt Overeem fight was amazing. I knew Overeem would kind of use his reach and just kind of kick, because We all saw what happened when Overeem got with Stipe. He couldn't handle it. And then the women fight, that was great. I mean, I loved the trash talking, and I loved the style. She was very confident, Vivilo. But after that, it was just depressing. Now, what were your thoughts on the UFC 209?
Yeah, so I was trying to think about this. I actually totally agree with you, but I go a lot further. I thought I was very entertained by the Danielle Kelly-Rashad Evans fight, and I was really, really entertained by the Tamer versus Tanada fight. I thought that was a fantastic fight. I thought that was fight of the night.
I mean, I was entertained. I just didn't. If I can go back and watch it, but when I was watching it live, I scored the first. I gave it split decision to Rashad, but I gave the fight. The next one, I gave it to David, but I didn't think he won 30-27, unanimous. I thought Venata won the first round, and then David Tamer won the next two. So the judging right there, I thought was a little off.
So going back to what I was gonna say, I was like, I felt like a kid who was like acing a test, and then like the teacher caught me for cheating, and I got a 0 because I totally agree. I was totally entertained. I thought there was some great moments. I mean, the Darren Elkins comeback is one that you'll talk about for years. His comeback against Bektik. Right before that was the Alcantara comeback. That was fantastic. But everything was great, and then the main event was awful. It was. I know people are calling it the worst fight ever. Personally, I don't put it the worst fight ever, but I have no issue with anybody who does, because
does this fight does the main event remind you of when Severn and Shamrock fought way back in the day when they would just slap each other? I figured that would be a comparison to Thompson.
Yes. That was at UFC 9, which I believe was in Buffalo, New York. It was the rematch. The first time they fought was UFC 6, which was my first ever UFC I ever got to watch. But yeah, UFC 9, Dan Severn and Ken Shamrock just stared at each other and circled for, back then it was 1 30-minute fight. And then there was a 3-minute overtime, I think it was, that they would have. And basically what happened is Severn had a little flurry right at the very end of the fight and won the fight. And that's how Tyron Woodley won the fight. He won the fight with a little flurry at the end.
He must have watched tape then. He must have saw that fight and did the exact same thing.
Yeah,
well, that makes sense.
Yeah, he must have listened to our recent interview with Dan Severn, and he said, "Wow, man, if that guy did all that, let me do the same."
Yeah.
So let's talk about this main event. Why I wouldn't? I mean, what would you say is the worst MMA fight ever?
Oh, well, that's simple. Kimbo versus Data 5000.
Yeah, that's exactly the fight I was thinking. Yeah. But I don't think that's the worst fight ever, and I'll tell you why. I actually was entertained by it. Like, as bad as it was entertaining.
It's a train wreck. You have to look at a train wreck. You know, you can't turn away.
Yeah, that's exactly how I felt.
Fight.
I remember them saying, I can't remember who it was. It might have been Jimmy Smith. He said something like when they were going to a commercial break, he says, like, we're going to commercial break, and you know that you're going to come back. Like, don't even bother. Like this fight is so bad, but you're still going to come back and watch. And that's exactly what happened. I mean, it was the fight that I probably would put the worst fight ever is the Nate Quarry fight against Caleb Starnes. It was at UFC. I don't remember exactly which number. I think it was in like the 70s, like 79 maybe. It was. Let me think. It had to be close. Yeah, it had to be in the 70s because the main event that night was George St. Pierre versus Matt Serra the second time, which St. Pierre won. The first one was UFC 69. I can't remember what the second one was. I think it was like 76 or something like that. Maybe 79. I can't remember off the top of my head. Anyways,
I'll look it up right now.
Yeah, it's definitely I believe it was in the 70s. But the reason 83. Okay, so that's not like it. You put me on. Gave me all this credit last week. Yeah, you put me on the last because last week you gave me all this credit that I'm like this guy who knows it off the top of my head, and I didn't know. But yeah, Caleb Starnes fought Nate Quarry, and that's how we got the nickname the Running Man because he basically ran away from Nate Quarry. He didn't touch him. He ran away. And then there's this weird odd thing where he was yelling at the UFC, and there was some kind of, he was protesting. He said he was protesting fighter pay and lack of unions and all this crap. That's why he didn't want to fight. He kind of wanted to embarrass them and ruin the pay-per-view. And I don't know, some really weird thing that never really gained traction for whatever he was doing. I remember Nate Corey was doing this weird thing where he was, you know that thing where you cover your face and you pretend to throw a punch in between that hole between your shoulder and your elbow. He was doing that like funny thing, chasing around and just trying to like embarrass them. So that would probably be my worst fight ever. My worst title fight would probably be, or worst main event would probably be that Severn Shamrock fight, because it was 30 minutes long and you had to watch about 25, 28 minutes of absolutely nothing. What people don't know about that fight is that night it was agreed on because of there was protests against UFC, and they came into a new city that didn't want them. And I'm not going to go into history. I don't want to bore people, but basically there was gentleman's agreement that there would be no punches thrown. It would only be open hands, similar to the old Pancrase. But Shamrock and Severn were the only ones who followed this, because if you watch some of the early fights, John McCarthy is telling guys to like open their fists, and then they're not. They're punching each other. But that's what happened with Shamrock and Severn, and they agreed upon not to hit each other and just kind of open palm strike each other, and that's what happened. And so that's probably the worst main event. I don't call it a title fight because it was for the super fight title, which I don't really consider a title. I consider Mark Coleman the first champion ever. He was the first one to win a belt, even though Dan Severn was given a belt from that night, which he shouldn't have got. But I regress. I'm boring people with the history of MMA. Another one that really comes to mind is probably Tim Sylvia, Andre Arlovski 3, which was, I believe, I think it was at UFC 61, because UFC 60 was Hoist Gracie and Matt Hughes. I believe it was one right after that. I watched it at Pat Ward's house in his basement. It was so boring. I think it might have been the first title fight that I actually started like dozing off, because they stared at each other and they kind of, Sylvia won just by kind of landing a long jab from the outside, and it was awful. But the thing about this fight, why I wouldn't put it as the worst, is because there is skill sets going on. There was skill, you know what I mean? Like Data and Kimbo, even though it was entertaining, there wasn't like skills.
No.
Woodley and Thompson are skilled. But they respected each other's skills so much that it became a boring fight. And props to Kyle, because Kyle called a boring fight. He said it in his prediction show, his breakdown that he does with the MMA Profit and Sean who does the DraftKings. He said he predicted a boring fight. And, I mean, he was dead on. And, he called it right now.
Yeah, you can never relive the magic of, because that was the first fight was unbelievable. I don't know why fans, I guess people were always hoping that the second one would be better, similar to Nate versus Connor, but each guy was very timid, because Thompson could have knocked Woodley out and Woodley could have knocked Thompson out, and they respected each other's power, so it was just a constant stalemate, waiting for that one opportunity, which really never came until the last minute when Woodley just bum rushed him and got lucky with a shot, knocked him down, and then Thompson recovered a little bit, but then he got knocked down again. That was the only real explosion that I saw in the 5 rounds. Was, the last minute.
One thing that you mentioned was that they were so respectful of each other's style. One thing about Thompson, I think he was so worried about that right hand, because he lost the title because he got hit by that right hand in the 4th round. I mean, he had control of that fight. I think he was worried about the takedowns, and I think he was worried about the right hand. So that's why he was kind of trying to stay at outside range. But I think he could have been a lot busier, obviously. But I still think he won the rounds anyways. The rounds he needed. I think he won the first round. I think he won the second round. I think he won the 4th round. But the thing that Tyron Woodley said in the press conference, he said, everyone wants me to rush him. Everyone wants me to do this. They want to see war. But, everyone likes those kind of fights. I like them too, but I like being champion more. But what's funny, what he said was, everybody wanted me to rush him and throw my big right hand and wrestle. And, excuse me. But that's how he won the title. That's how he won the fight. He won the fight because he finally rushed him in the 5th period and won.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, everyone wants you to do what was going to help you win. Because that conservative standing against the cage, looking at him, that he said was a game plan, he was giving rounds away. I mean, it wasn't until he rushed him that he won.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess the strategy would be kind of lull him to sleep by being conservative and then finally pouncing.
Well, he did that, but he lulled everybody to sleep that ordered that pay-per-view card. That's
Yeah. So let me ask you a question. How did you score the fight?
If I actually scored it for Thompson, I gave him the nod. But it all depends on how you scored the 5th round. Was it the 10-8 or, that was the deciding one. But I when I was watching it, I mean, if I go back now and really pick it apart and analyze it, I may have a different opinion. But just watching it with the people, having a good time out, I scored it for Wonder Boy.
Yeah, I scored it for. Actually, I should rephrase it. I didn't score for either one. I scored it a draw. And imagine if we had 2 draws back to back, which I don't think has ever happened. As far as I know, 2 fighters haven't fought to 2 draws. And someone please correct me if I'm wrong. That'd be pretty fascinating. What I did, I scored the 1st round for Thompson. The 2nd round, I actually earlier said I thought Thompson won, but that's not correct. I originally scored a 10-10 round, which to me I don't really give out a lot. But there was so much or so lack of action that I really couldn't give. Even though Thompson, I guess, technically controlled the octagon, he was in the middle. Woodley was doing the back against the cage, but Thompson really didn't do anything. I don't have the fight metrics stats in front of me, but I'm assuming that the strikes were really low, that I couldn't give him a 10-9 round. So I scored it a 10-10. 3rd round, obviously, I give to Woodley. 4th round, I give to Thompson. 5th round, I give to Woodley. I gave Woodley a 10-9 round in the 3rd. I don't have an issue with anybody who scores at a 10-8 because I understand what they're saying. Like, he had him hurt, almost knocked him out. So I can see why someone would give it a 10-8 round. I just think action in the last 15 seconds is enough to get a 10-8 round. To me, you have to really dominate a fight or really have him hurt. Even though he rocked Thompson, had him hurt, I don't think it was ever close to being stopped. So I scored a 10-9. So my total score was 48-48. So I would have been the judge if I was that 3rd judge who gave it to Woodley. I would have given it a draw, and it would have came out to another majority draw. And what would they have done if that came out a majority draw? I have no idea. They couldn't do a 3rd fight.
No, nobody would ever buy it. See, the problem is, when I went to go see this fight, I was thinking, okay, a lot of people are going to show up because it was 2 titles, and then obviously we know what happened with the Habib and Tony Ferguson. The place was empty. Like, you would walk in at any time to get a seat. So I don't know if UFC is hurting for stars, because that's what it seems like, but it seems like the last couple pay-per-views have not really been exciting to bring back the fans, because there's no Conor, there's no Rousey, there's no big-name stars.
Yeah.
So the UFC is hurting, and they were trying to make a big star. They were trying to capitalize on the first fight, which was a barn burner, but I feel like they lost fans at UFC 209 if they actually ordered the pay-per-view, because they were highly disappointed in the main event.
Yeah, well, the UFC has always been a star-driven sport. There's only been a handful of guys who draw. You always got to have the hardcore fans, me, you, Kyle, guys like that. We're going to watch every fight. We're going to watch awful fights. I'm going to watch legacy fights. I'm going to watch World Series of Fighting. That's what we're going to do. But to the casual fan that they're trying to get, that the new ownership is trying to get, they draw the stars. And the stars in the UFC right now that draw are Conor McGregor, Ronda Rousey, and probably Nate Diaz. I don't think anybody else draws. Perhaps John Jones will when he returns. I'm not really sure. But that's it. And if you go down those 4, you got Nate, who knows what's going on with him. He says he's only fighting Conor. He wants $20 million, blah, blah, blah. You have Conor, who's taking a long period off. He's talking about boxing. That's why the UFC cannot let that fight happen, because if he goes to boxing, he might never return. If he gets the fight Mayweather for 10 times the money he makes. Rousey, who knows if she's ever going to return, and even if she does return, I don't think her pay-per-view numbers will do nearly as enough as she used to, being that she's lost 2 in a row, and I'm probably the only person still on the Rousey bandwagon. And as me and Kyle said the other day, it's not even train anymore. I'm still, it's off the track. It's going through like cornfields, and I'm the only one on it right now. But and then John Jones. I mean, you can't really trust him. I mean, Anderson Silva's not the star anymore. And then we have one other guy, which we'll get to in a little while, that could be a star that maybe pulls up some big pay-per-view buys. We'll get to him in a minute, a returning star. I don't want to jump ahead yet, but yeah, I wasn't at Buffalo Wings. I actually watched the fight. I got held at my personal job. I got held to way after midnight. By the time I got home, I recorded the pay-per-view at home, watched it by myself, started from the Fight Pass, worked all the way till I started dozing off. By the time it hit the Hunt Overeem fight, I went to bed, started up the next one. After everyone knew that the main event was boring, I was watching it the next morning and watching it and really disappointed. But yeah, let's talk about why I think this lost a lot of buzz. I don't think it would have drew huge numbers regardless, but one thing that definitely hurt this pay-per-view was the news that happened the day before, and that was with Khabib I always mess up his last name, Nurmagomedov, who was unable to weigh in due to a severe weight cut issue where he was hospitalized at the early morning hours and obviously given IVs and couldn't fight. He was supposed to fight Tony Ferguson in a number 1 contenders match. And to me, I don't know about you, but from the people I've been talking to, more people seemed more excited to see Ferguson and Khabib fight than they did the rematch between Woodley and Thompson, which is pretty ironic considering the Woodley-Thompson fight was their first time was fantastic, and people still wanted to see the Khabib and Tony fight. And the only time I remember technically it was going to be for the interim title, but the only time I can remember what I would consider a number 1 contenders match that had that type of buzz, and even not to this extent, was UFC 43, Chuck Liddell versus Randy Couture, when Tito Ortiz was in a dispute with the UFC over money and blah, blah, blah. Chuck Liddell and Randy Couture fought for the interim title for light heavyweight. That's the last number 1 contender match that I can remember having the type of buzz that Khabib and Ferguson had. So obviously when that fight fell through, there was a lot of people, I think, that decided not to order the pay-per-view. What's your thoughts?
I think the reason why there was so much buzz around that fight is because the winner of that fight, you almost assume, gets Conor McGregor, so you kind of have an answer to who possibly Conor is fighting next. That's why I think the buzz was there for that fight.
Yeah, that's a great point. Just the McGregor factor alone makes fights bigger. I mean, that's the realm we are right now. The chance to fight the savior of the UFC, the golden boy, whatever Conor McGregor is for the UFC, just an opportunity to maybe not even be the next to fight him, but to have the strongest argument to fight him, because Conor calls the shots. Conor wants Nate 3, Conor gets Nate 3. If Conor pushes for the boxing match, that's probably what's going to happen. If Conor wants to fight Woodley, that's what's going to happen. If he wants to fight George St. Pierre, that's what's going to happen. But the winner of Khabib Ferguson would have the strongest argument, in my opinion. I mean, they would be the interim champion. They would be in, his weight class where he's the champion. So I think you hit that right on the nail right on the head there when you said that McGregor has a factor in that, and I think you're right on that.
Oh, definitely, because if Khabib wins, he's talking trash that he's the real champion, because Conor he won 2 belts, but he's never defended a belt. And then, Ferguson, he talks some trash too, so you would get the press build-up from it. You would get them constantly calling out, similar to what Max Holloway's doing to Jose Aldo. He's calling him out. I think you would get that, and it would just make more buzz with Conor. And if he is coming back with this fight, you have a definitive answer that he's going to get Khabib if they fought, or he was going against Ferguson. But now it just pushes it back even farther. We don't have an answer, and it's just making the UFC slowly sink further and further away from gaining fans. They're slowly losing fans because Conor is not in the media as much. In the UFC, we hear about the boxing thing every single day, but that's got to stop. It needs to be swerved back to the UFC. This fight canceling pushes it back even farther, so we don't even have an answer now, and who knows if we'll even get an answer as to who Conor's fighting next, if he's still fighting in the UFC.
So one thing I want to talk about, let's talk about first before we leave the main event. Just make sure we're in agreement. Who should Woodley fight next? I say it's a no-brainer. It's got to be the winner of Damian Maia and Jorge Masvidal. Do you have a dispute with that, or?
No, that's I agree. What Maia has done in his streak, and what Masvidal just did to Cerrone, who people thought was next in line, I think that fight makes the most sense. The winner of that should be in line for the next title, but we have to remember this is the new UFC. Money is everything. Now that may not, if Maia wins, that fight's not going to draw a dime. If Woodley fights Nick Diaz, just for the hell of it, you're going to get more money than him fighting Maia. This is the new UFC. Money, money, money. That's all they care about. They don't care about number one contenders. It's just money.
Well, let me say something right now about you mentioned Nick Diaz, and I know anybody who's listening to this news podcast, they don't want to hear me rant about Nick Diaz again. But I'll tell you, if they announce that Nick Diaz gets a title fight over Damian Maia if Maia beats Masvidal, I will go on an epic rant on here. I mean, he hasn't won a fight in 5 freaking years. Give me a freaking break. He shouldn't deserve to get a title fight. And sadly enough, there's more buzz about him than Damian Maia. And it wouldn't shock me if Nick Diaz in his return fight in the octagon would get a title fight.
It wouldn't.
That said, I think you said something where you said that Maia and Woodley wouldn't do a dime, and I think you're right. I think it would be a very low pay-per-view due to Woodley's going to have the rap now. He's been in some boring fights. He's going to have a rap, being that he was just in this fight against Stephen Thompson. He had a pretty boring fight against Kelvin Gastelum recently. Excuse me. And then you have Damian Maia, who a lot of people hate. Now, I've said this many times before. I am not bored by Damian Maia at all. To me, watching him is like watching Picasso paint. He's a master at what he does. He's a one-trick pony, but that trick is a damn good trick. I mean, it is fantastic. I would love to see the matchup between Maia and Woodley. I would love to see if Maia would be able to take down Woodley, who's a better wrestler on paper, much better wrestler on paper. He's built differently. He's big. He's huge. He's a huge welterweight. I would want to see if he could get by Woodley's right hand, how explosive, how Woodley closes distance better than – honestly, Woodley closes distance better than anybody since George St. Pierre. George St. Pierre has always, to me, has been the best at closing distance. That's what made him special. Woodley has that same ability. Now, I'm not saying he's George St. Pierre here. St. Pierre had more tools in the toolbox, but just that aspect of the game of closing distance, Woodley's been great at. So I would like to see that. But I'm in the minority. There's a lot of people who's going to be rooting for Jorge Masvidal to win that fight. But then you have that interesting angle with Masvidal. Masvidal's been with American Top Team forever. Tyron Woodley is like a part-time American Top Team guy. He has his own school at the American Top Team. He's trained at the main camp. Obviously, he's still with Rufus Sport, too, so he kind of goes to both camps, the one in Coconut Creek. And word is that Masvidal is not just some guy like, oh, they've been in the gym together. They're like they're like main training partners, and they're like very close friends. So you'd have that weird angle, like would they even agree to fight each other? You know. So
I think they would.
Yeah,
I think money and the title that trumps friendships. We all saw what happened with Rashad and John Jones years ago. So money in the title, that's the most important thing in UFC. It's not making friends.
Well, Rashad and Jones had a falling out before that, though. Before they were friends when Jones got the title shot. Actually, Jones replaced Rashad Evans for the title shot. A lot of people remember that. Rashad Evans was fighting Shogun and he got hurt, and John Jones jumped in.
Jones beat Bader, and then they gave in the octagon. They made the announcement that he's fighting for the title.
Yeah. So now the UFC, and excuse me again, the UFC is in a really tough situation with Stephen Thompson. Thompson, obviously, he's had 2 shots at the title. If I had to pick a winner, I would have took. If I was told, no, you can't give a 10-10 round, second round, I would have gave it to Thompson, and he would have got my scorecard. You can make an argument that he has won 3 out of 5 rounds in both fights and still hasn't got the title. So I actually do feel for him. And these guys like the nicest guy. I mean, you listen to his interview with Kyle, he just seems like the nicest guy. He just seems the guy you want to root for. That said, the UFC I just think they're in a really tough situation. They're kind of in the same situation they are in with Joseph Benavidez with Demetrius Johnson. As long as Demetrius Johnson's a title, if anybody can make an argument for a title shot, could make an argument for a title shot, that person will get jumped the line before Benavidez, similar to Wilson Heiss getting the title shot before Benavidez gets the third shot. I think the same thing will happen with Stephen Thompson. No matter what he does, if Tyron Woodley is a champion, somebody else is going to jump the line. Whoever has that argument, whoever else they could come up with a somewhat reason to get a title shot will get the title shot. So the UFC is in a really tough situation. I mean, do they give him a Robbie Lawler? Do they give him a Donald Cerrone? Do they give him, a Neil Magny? I mean, do they want to use Stephen Thompson to knock off future title contenders? It's a really weird line because obviously you don't want to put a top 5 guy against someone who's not a contender. But on the flip side, you put yourself in a situation where you have a guy who you don't want to be in a title shot knocking out the other contenders.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I totally agree with that.
So there is one other contender at welterweight that we haven't mentioned yet. And he's not fighting at welterweight because news broke, and this was last Wednesday. Obviously, you and Kyle did the show Monday, so we haven't got to talk about this yet. And me and Kyle talked about this 2 weeks ago when Dana White announced that George St. Pierre, the greatest welterweight champion of all time, arguably the greatest fighter of all time, he's at least in the discussion, would return to the UFC. Me and Kyle both kind of ran down the possible options for him, and we both wanted to see the Anderson Silva fight. I said it in a nostalgic way. I would like to see it in a nostalgic way. I think Kyle kind of agreed with me. But no, he's getting Michael Bisping, the middleweight champion of the world. So are you pro or con that move?
As a fan, you always want to see the fighters that you grew up watching compete against the highest level. And this is what I said earlier. This is the new UFC. I mean, obviously Bisping should fight Romero or even Jacare, one of those two, but I would say Romero. But no, they're skipping over everybody that deserves it to make that juicy dollar, that juicy buy right for the pay-per-view, to put him against GSP. Does it make sense? No. Am I going to watch it? Yes. Because every fan's going to watch this. Because it's GSP. It's going to bring back the people that forgot about UFC for a little while. They're going to come back and watch the pay-per-view. And this will probably be one of the highest-rated pay-per-views in the last couple of years. I have a feeling. It'll be it won't reach McGregor status numbers, but the UFC will definitely get a big boost with this card because I feel like they may stack it. And I'm excited to look forward to this, but I don't think that GSP deserves the title shot right off the bat. But I feel like he's got one more fight in him, and I feel like, you have to give him – you don't have to give him anything. I feel like this is the only option that he wanted to do, and UFC just threw it at him, threw the money at him and said, take what you want. And he's taking Bisping's title sometime later this year, I have a feeling.
Yeah. So me and Kyle, what we did that night, we went over all the options. We kind of we ranked like the order of how we wanted them. And Kyle had Michael Bisping as his dead last pick. Michael Bisping was the guy he did not want to see Joe CPO fight. I had Bisping somewhere in the middle because I was kind of on the fence. I was kind of torn. I was torn between the fan of entertainment, because obviously I want to be entertained. So I was torn by that, between the part of me that just loves the purity of the sport. I love rankings. I love doing rankings. I love thinking about who deserves title fights. I love that stuff. I love the sport part of it. So I was torn. I mean, you got George St-Pierre hasn't fought in 3.5 years. He's never fought at middleweight, and he's getting a title fight. That bothers me. I mean, it bothers me that a guy jumps the line. But not only does it bother me that he jumps the line, but he jumps the line. It's not like flyweight right now where there's really a murky situation where Wilson Heiss is getting a title fight, but he's not even ranked in the top 5. You know, it's not one of these situations where, you know, the heavyweight division had some awful moments. I mean, I can think back to, I'm trying to think back to like UFC 58 where Andre Arlovski fought Justin Eilers, you know, excuse me. Oh, excuse me, that wasn't 58. That was 53. I'm sorry, that was UFC 53. Yeah, he fought, I think 58 was Rich Franklin, David Eliza one. But, yeah, there was, you know, there's a tough, I mean, Justin Eilers was coming off a loss, and he got a title fight because there was no guy standing out. He was the only guy available. UFC 55, Andre Arlovski versus Paul Bunatello. I mean, there were some awful people that get title shots. But middleweight's not in that situation right now. Middleweight is loaded. I mean, you got Yoel Romero on, a 6-7 fight winning streak, beating killers. I mean, he's beaten Chris Weidman. He beat Tim Kennedy in a very controversial fight. But, you know, Machida, I mean, he won a split decision over Jacare. I mean, I know there's some controversy there, too. But I'm saying those are killers, I just think. Derek Brunson and Brad Tavares is another good fighter that he beat. I mean, he's beat some killers. Then you got Jacare sitting on the sidelines, and now he's going to fight Robert Whittaker. So the winner of that fight is still back in line. You got Musasi and Weidman. If they wait, whoever wins that, they got to wait for it. I mean, if Musasi beats Weidman, I mean, he starts knocking on the door for a title shot. Then you got Luke Rockhold. If Rockhold, when he returns healthy. So there is a line of guys that have a legit shot. And then you got a guy like, I mean, not that I think he's near a title fight yet, but Daniel Kelly, I mean, he's on his run right now. He gets 2 or 3 more wins. I mean, there's another guy that, you know, you eventually start saying, hey, this guy got a title. Not I want to say 2 or 3, but like 2. He gets a win, you know, against our top 10 ranked guy, then fights a guy who's top 5 and beats them somehow, beats both of them. I don't expect it to happen, but if he does, but you're putting all these guys, you got all these guys lined up ready, all deserving title fights, and it's getting held up by a guy who hasn't fought in 3.5 years. Now, on the flip side, the entertainment part of me, I'm just happy George St. Pierre is fighting again. I mean, we've been waiting forever. So to get an opponent, I was happy about that. I was happy that they named an opponent. I was happy that it was Bisping in the sense that I know it's going to be entertaining. I mean, the press conference was already entertaining. Bisping's going to continue to talk. It seems like St. Pierre, he's coming back with a different attitude, too, because he's talking, too. And that was never St. Pierre's game. I mean, other than that one moment when he stepped in the cage against Matt Hughes, I think it was UFC was it 56 when he beat Joe Riggs? I think he beat Joe Riggs, and he said, "I'm not impressed by your performance." You know, that's the only time I think that he trash talked. But fast forward to today, I mean, they're trash talking, and then the intriguing part of the style matchup, because no one knows who St. Pierre is. I mean, it's been 3.5 years. Is it the old St. Pierre? If the old St. Pierre, I think St. Pierre wins easily. But if he's declined a lot, and that adding in the size advantage of Michael Bisping, I mean, that's going to be a factor. And one thing that George St. Pierre likes to wrestle guys, he likes taking down. Michael Bisping has a pretty good takedown defense. It's a lot better than he gets credited for. I mean, case in point, check out the Chael Sonnen fight. Chael Sonnen was an Olympic-level wrestler. I mean, and he had a struggle to take Michael Bisping down. And he's a lot bigger than George St. Pierre. And I know MMA wrestling is different than amateur wrestling, it's completely different. We actually did we're doing a documentary right now on a local fighter. We talked to another local fighter, Nate Andrews, and we actually were talking about that topic. MMA wrestling compared to amateur wrestling is different. There's different elements to it. But so I'm on the fence, and I know I think fans in general are happy about it, and hardcore fans are upset about it. Hardcore fans lean towards the sport aspect, while casual fans lean to the spectacle. And I think it's obviously going to sell high. You said that. I think it'll be close to, I think it'll get at least 800,000, which would be very successful. And one thing you have to remember, George St. Pierre's age, they don't know how many more fights does he have. And with what we talked about earlier, with the stars struggling to have stars, they kind of have to cash in on the big fights as they can.
Yeah.
I think St. Pierre versus Bisping would sell way more than St. Pierre versus Woodley, or, you know. So
you got to realize that Bisping's older than GSP.
Yeah. Bisping's what? I think 39. 38, 39.
Bisping's 38 and GSP is 35. So.
No, I think St. Pierre's 36 now.
Yeah, well, Bisping's not like in his early 30s anymore, so he's taking some wear and tear on that body. So, his eye, obviously he has all the issues with his eyes. So, I mean, I think GSP is going to win this fight. That's just my personal opinion. I could be wrong, which I always am at betting. I'm not the best bettor, and I know you do a lot of great betting, and you're great at picking and doing the parlays. This one, I would go with GSP. Now, who would you take in this fight?
Well, everyone knows that I am much higher on Michael Bisping than most people. I have Michael Bisping as a top 20 fighter of all time. If you look at his resume, I mean, I've done this before. Anybody look at old shows, I've talked about Michael Bisping. Look at his resume. It is a lot better than guys you get. There's guys like Mirko Cro Cop, guys like Takanori Gomi, guys like freaking Nick Diaz, who historically people rank higher than Michael Bisping. It's a joke. Michael Bisping's resume blows them away. It's not even close. That said, I would have a really hard time taking him over George St. Pierre just based on my memory of George St. Pierre. I mean, George St. Pierre is, like I said, arguably the greatest fighter of all time. I mean, it's between him, Anderson Silva, and John Jones. And some people put it Fedor Emelianenko. I personally don't put him in that, but either way, I'm not going to go down that road. But it's between one of those four guys for the greatest fighter of all time. So I would have a hard time picking against George St. Pierre. Obviously, I know George St. Pierre opened up as a favorite, not as big as a favorite as I thought. I think he was like negative 145 maybe to Bisping's like plus 125. I think that'll change because I'm sure there'll be reports about St. Pierre. They're already saying that he looks better than he ever has in his life and all kinds of stuff, and that he was training this whole time, that he didn't take long periods off. He was working on technique, blah, blah, blah. But here's the other thing that we didn't talk about. We don't have a date for this yet. They're here in summertime or maybe even fall. I mean, if they put this fight in fall, I mean, you're talking, say September, that's 6 months from now. And you're going to put a division on hold for another 6 months, and then you figure whoever wins that fight, say Bisping wins, just because if St. Pierre wins the middleweight title, who knows? He might pull McGregor and go back to welterweight. Who knows? Yeah. But if Bisping wins, one, I wouldn't be shocked if Bisping retires, because if Bisping beats George St. Pierre, what else is there for him to do? So you might as well retire. You're not going to have a higher moment than that. I was predicting that he was going to retire when he beat Henderson. I mean, that obviously wasn't true, but if he beats him, he could retire. But also, what happens? I mean, you got to say they fight in September. You got to hope he gets healthy. I mean, he stays healthy, bearing no injuries. You're looking at the earliest return probably December. I mean, that's 9 months from now. You got to make Yoel Romero wait 9 months. or now he's got to fight somebody else, probably have to rematch with Jacare or fight not rematch, but fight Musafi if he beats Weidman or a returning Luke Rockhold. I mean, there's so many situations. So they really screwed this division. I mean, but that's what the new management's going to do. The new owners, they're going to book the money fights. They have to. That's what happens when you put down $4 billion. You got to start getting that money back. I mean, there's no way around it.
This is the first step to getting that money back is Bisping versus GSP.
So one topic I just want to get to real quick, we could just kind of brush over this real quick because I know we don't want to go too long because this is Kyle's show. We want to stick to somewhat. I know every week we say it'd be around 30 minutes we always go over, but one thing I do want to real quick is the weight cut issue. It's a thing that I haven't seen in MMA like it is right now, and I've been a MMA fan for almost 22 years. I mean, there's people listening to this right now that I've been a hardcore, and I would say I became a hardcore fan immediately. So I've been a hardcore fan of MMA longer than somebody who's listened to the show's entire life, like longer than they've been alive, Yeah. And if you're 25, 27, I've been an MMA fan longer than you can remember that time, So I'm showing my age a little bit. I've never seen this issue, and some things got to be changed. And I want to know what your opinion, what you think needs to be changed.
Well, I know they're already starting to help the fighters by having them weigh in the morning to give them time to recuperate. I know that I agree with that because then the ceremonial thing is still cool to see. So it gives them more time to get hydrated and recuperate. I appreciate that for what the UFC or the Athletic Commission is doing with that aspect of it. But it's just the problem is it all relies on the fighter and their word that they can make this weight at this time. It's a contract that fighters are constantly breaking, which is the only reason why I can think about. It just makes me furious that if you agree to something, you have to do it. Like if you go to any other business and say, I want 4 new tires, and you agree with the mechanic, and he only gives you 2, it's the same kind of principle. It's like you have to be a man of your word. And obviously, we don't know what the extent with Habib was, but say with like Kelvin Gastelum has missed weight 15 times it seems like, and there's other people that are constantly missing weight. It's
Johnny Hendricks.
A sour note on the sport.
So there's so many issues with the weight cutting issue. I like the idea of the early weigh-ins, but I think they did it wrong, and I'll tell you why. The early weigh-ins benefits the guy who is on weight because he has more time to rehydrate himself, feel healthy, blah, blah, blah. The guy who's cutting close on weight, you've just lost roughly 8 to 10 hours of weight cutting time. Now you've got to get it in. For example, a guy like Andre Supatut, who made his debut, he's a friend of our website. He's never had an issue with weight cutting. Now he'd like to fight on 10 days' notice, didn't have as much time cutting, but he never had those early weigh-ins. He had to weigh in. He had to drop his drawers. He had to weigh in naked for his debut. Probably sapped. I mean, if you watch this fight, I thought he lost in the last 2 minutes. I thought he was winning the fight. I thought he was going to win 2 rounds to 1, and then his gas tank kind of looked like he got shot. That said, so a guy like him who was cutting it close had to drastically cut more weight instead of doing it over 10 hours, where you can kind of pace it out a little bit better. But I understand the extra hours to rehydrate, and I like that. What I would like them to do, I would like them to have the early weigh-ins where you can weigh in at this time, and then once you make the weight, you're good. You can start rehydrating. But if you haven't made the weight at the early weigh-ins, you still have to the ceremonial weigh-ins to make the weight. So a guy is like, oh, I got 3 pounds to go. Oh, my God, I got an hour to do it. My body's shutting down. Well, instead of trying to get 3 pounds off in an hour, let's do it slowly. You can even actually drink some water. You can like take some sips to keep your mouth wet. Different things you can do, and you can do it over 10 hours instead of doing over the time you had to do it. One thing I hear a lot of people say, they say guys got to stop cutting weight. They got to fight the natural weight. Yeah, that's wonderful in a fantasy land world. But every combat sport where it has weight classes, guys will always cut weight. And it won't change. They've tried doing it in wrestling. They've tried doing it in boxing. They've tried to find ways to get guys to fight at the natural weight. In sports, you're always going to try to get an advantage somewhere. And being large, being stronger, being bigger, that's always going to be an advantage. So they're always going to try to get that. So to say we got to find ways, make these guys fight at the natural weight, unless you make certain rules about it. One idea that they've done in wrestling, which I think is a pretty good idea, is that when you weigh in, you have double weigh-ins, where a guy has to weigh in one day, and then he has to weigh in the second day, but it's like an advancement. So say lightweight is 155, the next day it's 162 or 160, whatever they decide. You still have to make weight that next day. You see this I wrestled in the state of Rhode Island. We had to do that for the wrestling stage. You had to weigh in 2 days in a row. You had to weigh, say, 130 one day, the next day you had to weigh 138 or something, whatever it was. And if not, you missed it. The issue with that is you could have fights getting canceled the day of because guys put too much weight back on, have to recut weight again. Because guys will recut weight again. I've seen it not a million times. I've seen it many times. Guys have to recut to make the weight the second day. So you have that issue again. You have the issue where one suggestion people are saying is to add more weight classes. And I have two issues with that. The first issue is we already have a lot of weight classes to casual fans. It's already confusing, and we're going to start turning to boxing. Stephen Thompson doesn't win the title at 170. Okay, now he drops to 165, or he moves up to 175. And the other issue is if you add more weight classes, for example, there's a 15-pound weight difference between 155 and 170, and you put that 165. So the big guys, like Khabib, who struggles to make 155, moves up to 165. Yes, that'll happen. But you'll also have the guys who are at 170 going, I can make another 5 more pounds. I'll get down to 165. And then you got more guys draining themselves out. And what's going to happen? You have more guys who think they're going to make 165 and then not make the weight. And you're in the same situation. Yeah, it's not going to change anything. One thing, and I know I'm talking way too long because I'm passionate about this topic. But one thing I really wish they would do is go back to the IVs. Let them do the IVs. You talk about fighter safety. The IVs were meant to get guys to not cut as much weight, and it didn't happen. All it's doing is having them not be able to rehydrate faster. Guys are still going to cut the weight. That's just they've shown that they're going to still kill their bodies to cut the weight. And another thing that happens with guys that cut weight, they get so used to it, but your body changes. As you get older, your body changes. I mean, Johnny Hendricks has come to this realization that he just simply can't make 170 anymore. His body's different. This could be the same thing with Khabib. I mean, there was a time when Johnny Hendricks made 170 all the time, and then all of a sudden his body changed. And there might be some work. I might not be using the best example, but and then all of a sudden he couldn't. So that's my issues. Hopefully, I think they do some drastic changes, but it's not adding weight classes. That's not what it is. It's not just say, hey guys, don't cut weight, because that's not what's going to happen.
I definitely agree with everything you just said. They don't need more weight classes. They just need to be a man of their word and say, I can make 155, or I can make 185, or they just gotta stick with it. They need to just. This is a business, so they need to have the right people. They need to have the nutritionists. They need to have them telling them to hit certain weights at this certain time. 2 weeks out, we have to weigh this weight. Because on the website where we do a lot of interviews at TheMMATakeover.com, you actually ask the fighters that you interview if they're fighting next week. You actually ask them their weight a lot, which is good, because you can actually see what their actually weight is currently and what they have to get down to.
Yeah, every single person we've talked to so far said they're going to make weight easily we haven't had one person say that and not make weight. But I'm sure it's going to happen. I'm sure it's going to happen one of these days. The guy's going to tell us, "Oh, we make weight fine," and it's not going to happen.
Yep.
But speaking of the website, we're going to get out of here. Kyle always lets us to bump our website. Some things you're doing. Tell us what you're doing with the documentary you're doing. Tell us about it.
Well, as you know, there's a pretty big organization for MMA up here in the Northeast called CES. And a lot of the guys that they have on the roster have actually fought currently in the UFC. Rob Font's been there before, Dominic Steele. There's, Andre Sukumtat, who we just fought last week. He was the champion over there. There's an up-and-coming guy, 3-0, Marquise Brewster, and we're going to follow him. We just did it. I'm working on it right now currently. We just were at his gym. And then we're going to, go to his family. We're going to talk to them as well. And then we're going to it's kind of like a documentary series. We follow him up to the big fight. And you can look forward to that coming soon. The first installment should be dropping sometime this week on the MMATakeover.com. And we got a lot more interviews coming up. We got a lot more great written content. I know Nick's got a whole bunch of interviews that will be spaced out periodically coming up in the next upcoming weeks. Is there anything else I'm missing? Oh, we got our new rankings probably coming out very soon. So
new rankings will come out this week. Yeah, just so people have asked me before when rankings come out. We do rankings once a month. We do it after every pay-per-view, the major pay-per-view. So pretty much every numbered UFC there'll be a new ranking. So sometime probably Wednesday, Thursday. But we always got stuff. We always got breaking news, opinions, trivia. We got trivia of the week tomorrow, fighter of the week, all kinds of stuff. But always check out. We had interviews with guys fighting this weekend. I just posted Jeremy Kennedy up. We'll have Tim Means, who was a really, really fun guy to talk to, a veteran of the sport. I'm going to post that tomorrow. And then we're going to have Josh Berkman, a true veteran of the sport. He'll be up after that. And then Marquise Brewster, just one thing you stated, it's going to be 4 installments. It's going to be 4 of them leading up to his fight on the 31st. Just kind of behind the scenes, get to know an upcoming fighter, his lifestyle. Kind of, we calling it follow a fighter. So it'll be really short, 5-minute little clips of it. So Dave's putting a lot of work in. Dave does a lot of stuff for the website. I just want to pump him because he's kind of a guy who's got a flies under the radar. You're kind of behind the scenes guy. You do so much stuff. You're always editing, making me sound better than I am. All kinds of stuff. So I appreciate what you do. One thing I want to talk real quick is Kyle. Kyle, we appreciate you trusting us. I don't know what you were thinking by letting us do this. I'm sure this would probably be your lowest viewed episode. We apologize for that. I apologize for not having the smooth voice that Kyle has, the best voice in all of mixed martial arts. But check out Kyle's website, man. The guy is doing some killer stuff. He's got some great interviews. He's got great content. One thing he always does, he always doesn't give himself enough credit. He's always kind of pumping everybody else. He pumps me a lot. He pumps LK, is a new guy from the UK that he brought in that's going to be doing his wrestling podcast. He's filling in for him sometime this week. He's doing recaps. He's got the MMA Prophet on. And Sean, I'm sorry, I don't know Sean's last name. They do the breakdowns of each fight. They got Dave Madden coming in. He's always pumping everyone else. But Kyle's really great. He does. And I'll tell you right now, he's very genuine. How he is on air is how he is in real life. I know him. He's a friend of mine. We only met a couple months ago, but I already consider him a friend. He's helped me out. He's helped our website out a lot. He's given me great advice. He's always helped me. Anytime I need something, any advice I need, I call him up. He's always willing to help. I appreciate it. I appreciate what he does. And so with that said, Kyle, thank you so much. Make sure you guys check out all Kyle's stuff. Check out his website. Check out his Twitter. All that stuff. Make sure you check out all our social media. We got all the Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, all that. And you just listened to the LoudMouth News Podcast. Thanks for listening. Thanks a lot, Dave.